Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to show you how to texture this arch piece right here. So here is a very simple model of an arch. This is something from my locked in video series, and I'm going to show you how to texture it similar to what I have done. So we've got these two pieces here in geometry. We've got the arch itself, and we've got some trim that wraps around there, and we want to texture that, and we want to have three different textures on there. All right, so the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to come over to the UV editing window, and we're going to have to unwrap this. And this is not very difficult to unwrap. You can see over here on the left side, this is the UV window here, and here we can just see our model in Blender. So to unwrap this, if I just come in here and I select it all, I'll go into edit mode and I press U and then unwrap, you can see what we get. It's all sort of stretched and it's bent, and it doesn't look very good, and it wouldn't take the texture that I want to use, in particular the bricks that I want to put down here, very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to press 2 for edge selection, and I'm going to press Shift and Alt and click on this middle edge here. And I really recommend that what you do is just experiment with your model. If you only have 2 edges here, choose one, or if only 1 edge, you know, just try different things. But I'm going to select that, and I'm going to press Control E, Mark Seam. If I do that and then select it and press U, unwrap, I now get this. So now my wall unit piece is much straighter, and I have this curved piece. However, I don't want this piece to be curved, and it would be nice if this was all nice and straight as well. And so what I can do is I can press 1 for vertex selection, box select here, and then I can scale this in the X to 0. Go SX and watch the UVs 0, and then straighten that out. That little bit is probably not going to matter that much. So I'm just going to leave that piece as it is. I'm going to press Control spacebar. But this piece here, it would be nice if this is straight. Now this is the piece that goes under the arch right here. And I want the bottom of it to have the bricks, like you see in the image here. All right, the bricks wrap around here, and they're very straight. This part here is going to have a concrete texture, this stuff here. And if it is not straight, and if it's bent, you can get some weird, you know, stretching on your texture. So it's nice if it is straight, even though it's got a curve underneath here. And so I'm going to work on that. Now the easiest way, probably, I'm actually going to Control plus again, is to select a bit and go Control L, press N, and use this add-on called UV Squares, but it costs money. All I would have to do is click to grid by shape, and it's straightened. But if you don't have that, you can still do this in Blender. And what you want to do is find a quad, one of these squares. I'm going to press 3 for face selection, something like this one that's relatively nice and square, and tell the other ones to follow it, essentially. But I want to straighten this up a little bit more, so I'm going to press 1 for vertex selection and deselect, and I'm going to box select or individually select these two at the top, and I want to scale them in the Y. This is the Y this way and the X this way. So I'm going to press SY0, and that may have straightened them if they were a little bit crooked. I'll do the same here, SY0. See, that one moved a bit. Take these two now and scale them in the X by pressing SX0. That straightened those, and this one, SX0. There. Now, select this face. It's all straightened, and Control plus. This one stays white. It's the active one. Now that it's perfectly straight, we're going to tell the other ones to follow it by pressing U and choose Follow Active Quads, and just leave this on length average. Okay, and now it's straight. I can press G and move it. It doesn't really matter at this point. If I want it to have a bit more texture resolution, I can scale it a little bit bigger, you know, as long as it fits in the space. But we're going to go on and do the other piece as well. So we have UV unwrapped this part here. Now we're going to turn our attention to this. So if I just select this, go in edit mode and A to select it and go U, unwrap, that is messed up, all right? Now I'm going to be putting a metal texture on this, as you can see over here. Very basic metal texture. And, you know, there's a lot of variation in the metal texture. It might not even be noticeable. But I also want to try to put these dots on here. Now you could do that in geometry, but I'm going to show you how to do that in texture in Substance Painter. And I want these to go across nice and straight. So I really need to do some work on this. So I'm going to put some seams and unwrap it and straighten it. So a good thing to do is to select that and press the slash key on your keyboard underneath the question mark, just to isolate those pieces so we don't have the other stuff in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to scroll under, and I've got all these edges here from bevels. I'm going to press 2 for edge selection, Shift Alt and click and try to get one right underneath there. All right, as close as I can to where this thing comes out and juts out. And I'm going to press Control E, mark seam. Now let's just have a look at that. All right, I've put an edge on one, not the other. And let's just A to select it all, U, unwrap. See what that's done. Now all it's really done is broken it now into these pieces. So let's go over, deselect, and let's Shift Alt and click underneath there. And let's Control E, mark seam, A to select everything, and let's do it again and see how many pieces we get. All right, now we've got 4 pieces. These are not straight, however, and I may want to put a seam in here and on the other one right in the middle where it curves to break this long piece into shorter pieces. Now, let's see if I can get that. There it is. Control E, mark seam. Let's select it all and see what we come up with. All right, now I have these, but they're not looking too healthy. All right, they're not very straight. Again, it may not matter. If you wanted to put text on this or those dots, it would be a real drag to work with this kind of situation. So we're going to try to straighten them. Now, I'll do a little bit more manually in Blender, and then I'm going to switch to using the add-on. So let's take this piece here first. Let's see what we can do with it. I'm looking for a quad, and this one's not looking too bad. Let's try. Maybe we could use this and have the other ones follow it. So let's come in here, press 1 for vertex selection, select these top ones and go SY0. So that straightens them in the Y. Don't forget to do the bottom, SY0. Let's grab these two, SX0, and these two. Make sure we get the right points, SX0. Now make sure it's selected, Control L to select what's linked. And let's try this. U, follow active quads, length average. And now it's straight. Okay, beautiful. I'm going to press G and just move it to the side. I'll do one more like this, and then we'll see what we can do. Now this one, I'm not sure this one's going to work very well. We could try it. I'm not sure even what to take. I wonder if I could use one of these long ones. Let's actually try this. This looks like a long rectangle, but let's see if I just grab those two up at the top. SY0 might already be straight top and bottom, but just long. Let me just see if this can work. SY0. No, that didn't work. Okay, maybe I had the other one selected. SY0. All right, so it's active because I can see it's white. So I'm just going to reselect it anyhow. Control L. And let's try this. U, follow active quads, like the average. All right, it's gone straighter. Let me undo that, Control Z, and see what happens if I use my add-on UV squares. And if you're interested in that, just go to Blender Market and search for UV squares. Let's try to grid by shape. We pretty much do get the same shape. So that was okay to use. And I'm just going to use this add-on for the others. I'm going to select a bit, Control L, to grid by shape. Okay, we get a slightly different shape. Let's try a couple at a time. Control L, to grid by shape. And again, you could come in here if you wanted, and you could choose one of these and straighten it and do what I showed you before. But I'm going to try to do it the easy way. Okay, those worked. This weird thing, let's try this. To grid by shape. Okay, it didn't work there. Sometimes you could do it and deselect and try it again, and it works. And then this thing here, select that. To grid by shape, didn't work. Try it again. Okay. Now, I've got everything. It's not all in the UV space, but let's come back here, slash key, and let's select everything. And then come over here to this window and press A to select. And now you can pack. So in Blender, just go to UV. You can do average island scale if you want. And then UV and pack islands. Now there's a lot of extra space here, so I'm not really crazy about this unwrap. Let me try using another add-on called UV Pack Master 3. Now I think there may be updates to that, but that's what I've got right now. And I'm going to click on Pack. It didn't do it that much differently, and so what I may do is let me come back to Blender and Pack, and then come over here and just grab all of this stuff, and I'm going to press GX just to slide it out of the way. Grab this one, and I'm going to Control L, GX, and I may decide, well, let's find out actually where these pieces are from on our model. Come over here to the double arrow, click that, UV Sync, select those, and you can see that that is really my, my trim, and it's tiny on the UV scale. All of this is the arch. So I'm going to press G. I would really like that bigger to use up more space. So I'm just going to increase the size of that, and then I can bring that in like this. I'm going to grab, let's see if I can grab. Now that I know what it is, I can select everything. I'm going to grab this piece, Control L. I'm just going to move it out of the way. This is a similar piece, Control L. No, it's not. It's one of those. That's fine. I'm just going to separate all of these, and then I'm going to decide what I want to do. I think I'm going to take this piece, and I'm going to scale it up. Now, you do have to be careful that you know, sometimes you have to do these relative to the others, but I think we're going to be okay. I'm just going to make them a lot bigger, or somewhat bigger, and you know, because, you know, might as well use up more of the space. And then of course you could place these where you want in strategic locations if you're drawing on them, but that's probably okay. Now, is that the whole thing? There we go. We can separate that out. Now you'll notice that this one has, you know, the two sort of rows of polys there, and these ones. So you could rotate 180 degrees if you want them to line up a little bit better. All right, but we don't really have to worry too much. So we have our UV unwrap, and everything is straight, and it looks like it's probably going to work okay. So with that done, we are ready to move to Substance Painter. We have to export this as an FBX. So let's do that. Let's first of all save that, and let's come to File, Export, FBX. I'm just going to put this on my desktop. I'm going to call it Wall Tutorial. I'm going to turn on Selected Objects, and I'm on my desktop, Export FBX. Let's go over to Substance Painter now. We're going to import that, go File, New. Switch this normal map format to OpenGL if we're using Blender. I'm going to leave that at 1024, and I'm going to choose Select, and on my desktop, I'm going to grab walltutorial.fbx, open, and choose OK. Give it a minute, and it comes in. It's a little hard to see, all right, but you can see the arch and the trim. Now we're going to have to bake the mesh maps over here in the texture set settings, and your window may look different than mine, and I'm using a slightly older version. I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to choose Bake Mesh Maps, and that's going to generate a number of maps that will be needed to tell Substance Painter how to correctly place the textures on this model, because there is some curvature. It's a 3D and it comes in and out and it goes around, and we're going to need that. So I'm going to click Bake Mesh Maps. I'm going to choose the output size as 2048 to have a better resolution. And I'm just going to uncheck ID because I'm not using IDs, and thickness. I don't need that here. I'm leaving everything else the same. I almost always uncheck these. And I'm going to click Bake. And as it bakes, you can see the squares and you'll get a sense of the texture resolution. It went rather quickly, but you could see the squares were slightly larger on the wall than on the trim. I don't have equal texel density. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but you can. That's another thing that you can look into. It's a little jagged, so I'm going to come over here in the display settings and scroll down to activate temporal anti-aliasing, and that'll just make it look a little bit more pleasant as we work on this. Alright, so we UV unwrapped and we imported our FBX into Substance Painter, and we're getting ready. Over here in the Layers tab, there's already a default layer here. I'm not going to use that, so we're just going to delete it. Alright, let's have a look at our reference image. This is what we want to create. I'm not saying that this is the greatest texturing job or anything, but I just want to show you the principles of how to do it, and then you could choose the materials and tweak them to your particular scene, your particular model. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is get some sort of concrete, a base concrete on here. So over here on the side, I can choose here, I'm going to choose materials and then search for concrete just by typing that. And I'm going to use a material that should come with Substance Painter. I'm going to try to use materials that are available, except for the bricks, and we can talk about those later. This concrete simple, and you can of course drag any of them in, and you can buy these materials as well. These are just regular materials, they're not smart materials. I'm going to drag this over to the layers or onto the model, but I'm going to drag it here, and it'll put it on everywhere. To make some changes to this, I can click on Properties, and you can change how it projects, UV or triplanar. I think I'm going to leave it on UV projection, change the scale and various things. You can do various things here. But what I think I'm going to do here is just change the color and just lighten it up just a little bit. Even though we have this curve, but remember we straightened this out. So it looks fine to me. If it looks a little blurry at times, then that's fine. That's going to happen. We can come over here and scroll up. We can change the size. See, this is only at 1K right now, 1K texture. We can bring it up to 2K, but that's going to slow down my computer just a little bit. And so I'm not going to bother, but I'll often do that at the end. In fact, I'll show you what it looks like right here. You see this? It got a little sharper. All right, but I'm going to bring it back to 1K for now, and that's probably fine for most of your renders unless you're rendering up close or whatever. So, all right, you can change various other parameters here if you're interested. In particular, one that I will often play with if I'm not crazy, if I don't want all the sort of the height. Oh, by the way, you know, you can change that there is down here in the normal intensity and the height range. See that? I don't know if you saw that there. I'll just bring it back. Okay, and we'll try height position. You know, both of those can have an influence on that. We're going to start with that as our sort of base material, but you'll notice that it's also on the trim, and we don't want that on the trim. We want a metal on the trim, so we're going to start working on that. So that's concrete simple. You could rename that to base if you want. Now let's get to the next one. All right, I'm going to click on materials again, and I'm going to type in metal, and that's going to filter it into the metals. Now some of these I've gotten elsewhere, but you'll have a number of these. Like let's say this iron rough, or which one? Let's try iron rod damaged. Now I'm going to bring it on top of this other layer, and it's going to go there. But I'm going to I'm going to hide this and look at it. Okay, you see, this is what iron rod damage looks like, but I am getting the bumps from below here showing through. All right. And you might notice that it's looking finer here, like finer, smaller bumps than here. That's because, remember the squares when this was baking were smaller? We have a greater resolution here than on this big, big wall. And again, you know, once we switch this to 2K, see how that gets a lot nicer? But these are even finer now. I'm going back to 1K. So I want to, first of all, have the metal only on this piece, not on the wall. All right, I just went through and put concrete on the wall. I want concrete on the wall, and I want the metal here. So I'm going to use masking to do that. It's very simple to do. On the layer that I want just the metal, this is my trim layer, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on this icon. I'm going to choose add a black mask. So I'm going to click that. As soon as I do that, only the bottom layer is visible. It's masked out everything else, including the trim with any metal. Now what I can do, now that I've got a mask, I can now selectively choose what do I want to show through. So you add a black mask and nothing shows through of the layer that the mask is on. This black thing here is a black mask over the metal, the iron rod damaged. What do I want to show through and have that iron rod damaged? So what you now do is come over here. Now there's a couple of different ways to do this. So this is how I'm going to do it here. I'm going to use polygon fill. That's my fourth icon down, or fourth symbol down, polygon fill. Nothing's happened yet. I need to come over to the properties and choose how I want to fill that with the metal. Because this is a separate mesh, right? This trim was a separate piece on top of it. I can choose this third one here, which is mesh fill, and it'll select everything. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to click there, but don't forget to click on this one as well. Now go back to the brush, that's like the default. And now I have the metal where I want it. And it's on there. I still have the bumps from the layer below. Let me come back to here. The concrete simple bumps are coming through here. So I need to get rid of that. This is very useful, however, if you were like painting. I mean, this is called Substance Painter. If you were painting lines on concrete or something, you would want some of that surface below the paint to show through in the paint. If you're painting on wood, you want that. But in this particular case, this is a piece of metal, not a flimsy layer of paint or paper or something. So I want to get rid of that. So if I come back to the concrete symbol, and when we were down here, when I adjusted this, let's check this, normal intensity, just watch the concrete. Doesn't seem to be doing anything, but height, let's check that. That seems to be doing something. So I have a feeling the height and not the normal is what is causing this effect and causing it to bleed through here. So the way you get this layer, the second layer, to not have the underlying bumps, and by the way, I could have 10 layers below, all with different bumps, all affecting this layer, and if that's not what you want, what we're going to do is select the main layer here, not the mask, the main layer, click here and choose height, and notice it's LDGE, linear dodge. That's the blend mode or blending mode. I'm going to click there and scroll up to the top to normal and release there. Now that actually fixed it. The height was set to a normal blending mode, and now I have my metal that is unaffected by the bumps below. All right, so you can use that trick very often. If that doesn't get rid of it, come down and choose normal and switch this to normal. All right, it depends on which one. Now I can switch this back to base color, that's the default, and we can carry on. All right, so it's looking good so far. What we want now, however, is to get another texture on here. I'll worry about the dots later. We want to work on getting another texture down here. And in this example, I'm going to use bricks. You could use any bricks you want. You could use wood, you know, like wood panels, and we may have a look at that. whatever you like. So I've got my 2 layers, concrete simple. I've got my trim, which is the iron raw damaged, and I also want to have some bricks. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to come to Smart Materials this time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type in brick. And I'm going to use, I think, bricks missing. Now this is a smart material that I created. I'll link you to that video where I make the bricks, and you can create the bricks as well. I may also, depending on the size of this, I may also post it on the Zero Bio Discord, and if I do, I'll leave a link. If you go to the Zero Bio Discord, you would have to search most likely in the references channel. I'll tell you where to find it. The link, by the way, won't be active from the YouTube video. You have to go to the Discord and actually search for it, unless I put it somewhere else. But that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to drag this, and I'm going to drag it under. And you can see that didn't quite work. I mean, it is underneath the trim, but it's sort of showing through the concrete. Now, once again, that's again because this has got some height and normal information, which is bleeding into the concrete layer. That's actually not where I want it. I'm going to try putting it right there. Okay, so that's kind of okay. We're not getting the bricks effect on here because we've made that change on here, right? We went to the height and we changed that to normal. So we're not getting it here, but we're getting the bricks everywhere. And again, the resolution is not all that good. They're a bit blurry. We could bring it up to 2K after. What I'd really like is to have these bricks under the trim down in this area. So we're going to do some masking again, but we're going to use a different technique. On this folder layer here, I'm going to add a black mask. Now the bricks are gone and it's waiting. You know, where do you want to put the bricks? Okay, where should I unmask the bricks? Well, I can't really easily use the polygon fill here because if I select mesh, click there, it goes everywhere. But I want to show you another method where we can get the bricks just where we want them by painting a mask on here. Right now the whole thing is mask. I guess I'm painting an unmask, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to switch to orthographic and just move this over, and I'm going to hold shift and what am I holding? Shift and alt and snap it into a front orthographic view. It just makes it a little easier to do this. All right, I want to paint the area where I want the bricks to show through. So I've got the mask. On the mask, I'm going to add a paint layer. All right, paint layer. And what do I want to paint with? What brush? Well, I'm going to come over to my alphas and I'm going to type in SQ for square, and I'm going to choose this square. Double click, and now it's my brush. My brush is a square. All right, because, you know, I'm going to be painting a square area where I want the bricks. And it was important to have straight UVs for this. It'll work a lot easier. All right, so I'm in orthographic view. I'm going to press Control and right mouse button, Control and right mouse button, and that changes the size, or I could do it up here. And I want to make it nice and big so it sort of fits the wall and a little bit under the trim. I'm going to bring my brush over to here, and I'm going to hold Shift and Control and drag it across. That's going to constrain it, make it straight. Click. I missed a bit of the bottom, so I'm going to do that again down here. There we go. And the bricks are just where I want them. I'm going to have to turn here, and it didn't quite paint perfectly, so I'm just going to click there. I'll come over here. Just click. Just make sure I don't go above or I get some there, which is a cool effect, by the way. I'll show you that. All right. If you wanted some damage or whatever, I'm going to go back to perspective. It'll look a little nicer. Okay, there are your bricks. If you were to, because we're painting the mask where we want the bricks, and really the bricks are all throughout here, but we're just saying, okay, just reveal it down here. If I switch my brush, go to brushes and like dirt or something, choose a dirt brush, choose that. See, as I do that, it starts to reveal that stuff. So that can be a really neat effect to get, you know, some damage. Maybe I'll do one and leave it there, just for the fun of it. So we've got that in there. And then, of course, you could press X and come back and fill it back in if you want. All right, well, that was just a little extra. All right, so we have used regular masking, and we've also painted a mask on there. And let's see what happens if we switch it to 2K. How does it look? Okay, those bricks are looking much better. Now, these are sort of cartoon bricks. They're not necessarily realistic, but that's just the way they are. I'm going to go back to 1K, and let's say we wanted to put those circles on there. We're going to have to look at that. If you did this in geometry, you're going to have maybe 18 vertices for your circle, but you got to extrude it and you got to bevel it, and times 30 of these or something like that, and it can become kind of a pain. So let's see how we could do this. Obviously there's different ways of doing this. I'm going to create a folder, and I'm going to add a black mask to that folder. I'm going to create a fill layer and drag it into the folder. All right, so I'm going to select the black mask and come to my polygon fill, and I'm going to select my trim. You can see that it's white right now, and that's because this layer that I created inside the folder is white. What I want to do is I want to alt-click on height. I'm only going to be using height on this, and I want the metal to show through. So these bolts have the metal, and I'm adjusting height. I'm going to drag the height all the way up to 1 for now. Come back here, and nothing's happening yet. I'm going to add another black mask on this fill, and then I'm going to use the magic wand and choose fill. Inside this fill, you'll see only grayscale. I'm going to click, and I'm going to search tile generator. And there it is down here, tile generator. Click that. Right away, you'll notice these squares, which are really like bricks. That's the pattern type here. This height will control that. Make them go in, make them go out, so I'm leaving them right there. All right, so we have a folder that has a black mask, which we use to select the trim area. Underneath that, we have a fill layer where we've gotten rid of everything but height and brought the height up. And then we added a black mask and the tile generator. Let's go into the tile generator, the properties of the tile generator. Here I'm going to switch the pattern. You can choose whatever you want here. I might go for bell. We could try that one. And now we're going to have to fiddle with this a little bit. I'm going to fiddle with the position and the contrast perhaps to get the shape that I want. I may come into pattern. I can try scaling it down, making them a bit smaller. What I'm going to need to do is to move them down, and we're going to try, we could try switching this to triplanar. Turn that off if that gets in your way. We could look at the scale. Let's see. If I try 2, that doesn't really do what we want it to do. So let's come back here. We could play with the position. I might do it like this. What we're going to want to do is move it down. I'm going to open up this 3D projections down here. Sorry, this one, offset. Let's try the Y. See, that's okay, that's moving them down. Let's get it roughly there, and then let's play with this again. Let's change the scale. We can make them a little bit smaller. And I'm not getting them all the way across yet. So I'm going to come into the pattern transformation and change the number in X. If I change this to say 20, let's say, now they're starting to go onto the side, but they're the weird shape. I need to make this something like 20. Now I lost them. So it's back and forth. All right, let's see this. Okay, they're a little bit small, so let's scale them up. You can adjust this stuff. Okay, not quite what I want yet. Let's see. That. Okay. Let's try 30. 30. Okay, I'm liking that. Let's adjust here again. Okay, there we go. So it really requires some fiddling back and forth. Let's just look at, let's see. Okay. So if I come back here to where I was with the height, see? And one of the reasons I like doing it this way in texture using the tile generator is we can come back to the tile generator and we can choose a different pattern type. If we didn't want bell, what if we want square? Now you may have to adjust the parameters and get it to look good. Disc. That's actually quite good there. If I decrease that. There we go. And so because we set this folder just sort of holds everything and has a mask. All right. So really the action starts down here. I could change the color if I wanted. All right. But I don't want that. I want these to have the same metal, and that's why all I'm doing here is having height affect this. Okay. So that's a little bit on how to get 3 different textures on a model, how to unwrap it to start with, and how to do some masking and get these bolts on here that look pretty convincing without even having any geometry. This is very simple geometry. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.